welcome to yet another episode of the Halal Food Podcast. Today we are very excited to have somebody with an in-depth knowledge on meat industry, and also who conducts a lot of training for halal consumers and also for conventional consumers. You expect products that get to your table to be safe to eat and also to have met the right animal welfare. And for us to achieve this, we need our industry operatives or people who work in the industry to operate according to certain standards. And they can only achieve these standards by training. We have to train our staff to get to that level of expertise that we expect them to protect welfare and also to ensure that the safety of the products we eat or that they produce is upheld. So I'm not going to waste a lot of time. I'm going to invite Joss to introduce himself so that we go straight into the podcast. Joss.
Thank you very much. It's lovely to be invited. I'm honoured to be talking to you today, as you well know from LinkedIn posts. But yeah, my name's Joss Faulkner. I've been in the industry for more years than I care to remember. I started off as a slaughterman at one of Europe's, or I think it was Europe's biggest beef abattoir, Midland Meat Packers. As a young lad of 16 years old, I progressed through the business as a slaughterman for 16 of the 19 years I was there. The last 3 years, I got very, very involved with training staff within the business. I think we had about 1,200 people working for us. And I just had a massive passion for animal welfare, training people in the right standards, following SOPs to do the best job we possibly could. Sadly, that closed down. I think it was in 1999, I think it was. I then went to work for another training company. Didn't like the way it was done. I'm very passionate about delivering high quality trainees and training for trainees to help them become successful. And I set up Workforce Training Development Limited. I think we're in the 20th year now. And yeah, I travel around the country doing lots and lots of different things, and I absolutely love my job.
Yeah, what you said workforce training company. What is unique about your company?
Good question. I think it's because I've always said, and when I talk to clients and prospective clients, I always say I teach what I can do. So I don't teach hairdressing. Look at the state of my head. I always do what I do. Now I was brought up on a farm. My dad owned a farm for many, many years. I was brought into the industry through my dad. He was a meat livestock grader, so I didn't really have a choice to do. I did have a choice, but I didn't really have a lot of choice, should we say. So I was always from a farming background and then into the food production. That then set me on my way to set it. I think what makes us unique is probably we've all been there. We've all done it. We still currently do it. I happen to be the director, but I still train people on the lines, right from animal handling all the way through to the fridges and beyond into processing and butchering and things like that. And I still wear my shirt and tie when I'm doing it.
That is
So I
really
think that's
good.
what makes us unique. We're very, very hands-on. We're very hands-on a company, and we like getting in there, doing the job with the lads and lasses, and then showing them that we are real meat people. I think that's what makes us slightly different, maybe.
Yeah. So we all, as industry people, want to ensure that the image of the industry is protected. Positive image of the industry is portrayed. Now, I work closely with halal processors. Do you just restrict your training to only non-halal abattoirs, or are you open to training anyone?
No, I train anybody who's interested in themselves. I train anybody who's interested in our industry. We train people in religious slaughter as well as we do in mainstream, if that's the right word to use. So we do everything from, I'm interested in people than a product, if that makes sense, a training product. So, and I've become quite involved with especially in the Wattock side of things, doing the religious slaughter Wattock stuff. So, I'll train anybody who's interested in progressing.
Okay, so now you've just mentioned what talk. For those of us, for those listening and watching who do not understand what talk is the
Sorry,
is the
brilliant.
domestic regulation, the welfare of animals at the time of killing regulation, which is the domestic regulation in the UK. Apart from what talk training, can you just take us through the type of courses you do at your company or in your company?
Yeah, I mean, my main business is Workforce Training Development Limited, obviously WTD for short, and that's an apprenticeship business. So our apprenticeship business teaches everybody from young, even to going into somebody who wants to upskill within the business. So there's a government scheme that helps us develop abattoir workers to a very high standard through an awarding body called FDQ. We use the standards there, and we take them through right from the history mate up to modern day and everything in between. So that's one side of the business that we do a lot of apprenticeships for the various companies around the UK. I have a consultancy business as well where more mainstream WATOC, welfare time of killing, we do a lot of that. One of the big things that I've been trying a lot of is knife skills. There's a qualification within knife skills,
Mhm.
teach people how to use a knife, different types of knives, how to maintain them, how to use them safely, different knives for different jobs. So that's quite a good qualification to have.
Mhm.
It's a bit like having a pen with no ink. It's no good unless your knife's sharp, that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
We do a lot of health and safety training around the industry, and we do meat specific food safety training as well from level 2 and 3. Plus we do hazard analysis, critical control points training, again, level 2 and 3. That's the mainstay of what we do alongside standard operating procedure writing and compilation and things like that as well.
Yeah, it's interesting, Joss. Look, from what you've just said, that means you play an important role in industry. Now, most of what you've just mentioned is UK related. If a company is, say, in Dubai or in another country that wants to bring staff here or invite you to come to their country to train, is this is a service you can provide?
I would love to get involved with that sort of thing. I think the UK has got some wonderful standards in our meat industry, well, in the food industry as a whole, to be totally honest with you. And I'm confident that my experience and learning new things abroad, it's something that I would love to get involved with elsewhere, not just the UK. From a personal point of view as well as adding value to people overseas, yeah, it's something I'd really like to do. I actually train quite a lot of overseas nationals that come into the UK, Philippines and Nepalese, and from all over the world, and sharing their experiences of what they do in other countries to what we do here is an eye opener for me. And then trying to interject with those guys and encourage them to see what we do as a very high standard. I think so interesting. I really enjoy that side of things.
Yeah. So, just you also know I work for HDB and we do promote British products abroad. When we go to try to promote British products in different countries, we want to sort of highlight the fact that we've got good welfare, we've got good environmental sustainability credentials, we've got good halal production systems. Can you just take your time and explain what talk training involves so that people who are not in the UK can understand that look, we do go the extra mile to protect animal welfare.
Yeah, I mean, it's can be quite. It looks very complicated on the face of things, and what WATOC does, welfare time of killing, but it's basically a driving license. That's probably the simplest way I can explain it. So on your driving license, you start off with a moped, and then you progress to a car, and you can add to that license as you go along within your career. So animal welfare at time of killing is all about somebody not only having the skills to do the job against certain criteria and standards within, but it's also the knowledge of what happens and why we do things to that standard. So they've got the skills and they've got the knowledge. So when a learner wishes to partake in the WATOC, it's a 13-week program. They start on registration when I register them through my centre through FDQ, who own the qualification, and then we take them through a 13-week program of skills and knowledge. It can be single species, it can be multi-species. It just depends on what that person, what that business actually requires on their driving license, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's then observed by myself. So we take them through an observation process. And after the observation process of the skills, they've met the criteria. I provide feedback on how well they've done and any gaps in evidence.
Yeah.
And then we sit in the classroom and do. I don't like the word exam because that normally frightens people. It's an assessment of what they've been learning within their 13-week period. If they've got over the criteria right, it matches with their skills, I can then pass them and they become a qualified slaughter worker, abattoir worker.
Is there a difference between the in the EU legislation it requires slaughter persons to have a certificate of competence? Does what
Yes.
sort of licenses qualify as a certificate of competence, or do you have to do an additional course to get the COC?
Okay, so your TCOC, which is your temporary certificate of competence, that's when the WATOC comes in. You have your 13 weeks to do all your learning, your training, your skills and knowledge. At the end of that 13 weeks, your WATOC is a certificate of competence. That certificate of competence then allows you to apply for your full certificate of competence, not your temporary one. So your temporary one is, again, going back to the driving scenario, your temporary one's basically a provisional driving license. You pass your tests, you then get your driving license, and off you go on your own. So that's basically what it means, yeah.
Okay. So again, with the Warthog training, I know there are people outside the UK who may be trying to replicate, to emulate what we have achieved here or what we do here.
Yeah.
Is it something you could do? You said 13 weeks. That's a long time to go through a course if you are not based in the UK. How can you, is it something you can squeeze into a few months, or it has to be 13 weeks if you're doing it
Oh
abroad?
no, most definitely. I mean, if you look at the 13 weeks, that would be a stretch for anybody if they're doing a single species or they're doing certain jobs, certain units. So if you were just in the lairage in your animal handling, you could probably do it in 2 or 3 weeks. If you then do an animal handling, points of slaughter, sticking, shackling, sticking, signs of life, that would obviously take a little bit longer. I would be very concerned if someone did all 3 species from all those topics within 4 weeks. I'd be very concerned. But certainly, depending on what has been applied for in your temporary certificate, that would dictate how long I would assess them and train them. So yeah, you don't have to do 13 weeks by a long shot. My apprentices, I tend to take to 13 weeks. They're generally very new, they're very green to the business. So I like to take my time with those guys, give them more information. For someone who's experienced a bit more, then they could certainly do in 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. It really depends on the person, the amount of exposure they'll have to the task that they're learning, and we've all got different learning curves as well. Some people learn quicker than others. So certainly, I'm waffling. Sorry. To 13 weeks you've got, but you can do it before 13 weeks, certainly.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Another important bit you mentioned was knife skills. So we've now discussed Warthog in greater detail. Knife skills, one of the most important aspect of halal slaughter is to have a sharp knife.
Yeah, one cut.
Yeah, yeah, one cut, absolutely.
Yeah.
What does the knife skills training involve? And is it something you could also offer abroad?
100%, 100%. I mean, I'm a bit addicted to sharpening knives. I've been, yeah, I'm a bit strange. Like, I just love a sharp knife. It just makes my job easier. It makes my wrist hurt less. You make a cleaner cut. You have better yields. You have better welfare. So certainly on the knife skill side of things, there's 3 parts to it. There's your health and safety around it, how people carry knives, how they use them, the dangers of, the personal protective equipment we're aware. And that's more to protect the learner if they're new to knives. Second part is all about knife sharpening and maintenance,
Yeah.
methods of sharpening. Lots of people these days don't use stones and steels. They use mechanical aids, or they use the clickers, ergos, which I don't get on with very well. So I teach them all about stone and steel, we do show them how to use clickers. So it's all about different knives and different sharpening, and even to the point of different angles on different knives. Slaughter guys tend to use a very shallow angle because they're generally not hitting bones. They're a finer edge. Your butchers tend to use a more aggressive angle where they're hitting bones and they're a little bit harder to maintain. So that's another side of it. And then obviously the health and safety around it, maintaining knives and the different uses of knives. Again, that's classroom based. It depends on learners again, it's a classroom based theory. And then also I do the practical knife sharpening within the classroom environment where we end up shaving paper and making a mess everywhere. It's great fun. And then there's practical observations once they've done the theory to make sure that they're actually applying what they've learned within the classroom. And it's a real subject I love teaching, actually. It's good fun. It's good fun.
Nice one, nice one. So I've come across the Anago knife sharpening measuring machine, which
Yep.
is an objective way of measuring knife sharpness. Temple Grandin also came out with a paper. I don't know whether she's the originator of using paper
I'm
to
using the paper,
yeah,
yeah.
of using the paper. That cannot
Yeah.
be done under commercial conditions because on the line is watery, is a mess. How do you check the sharpness of your knife to make sure you've done a good knife sharpening before slaughter?
Well, that's a really good question because if I go back to the older days, it was you shave one arm. And that's a little bit frowned upon now, obviously, because you're going to contaminate the knife and the product when you're doing it. So I don't normally let guys do. I show them how to do it in the classroom, but I always say don't do it on the shop floor, please. A lot of people feel their edge, don't they? And if it feels sticky, almost sticky, it's sharp. And what I learned from the religious slaughter guys was you have a slaughterman, a cutter, and then you have a knife man, don't you? And the way the guys were growing a fingernail, and again, I'll tell my learners not to do that. If someone knocked them, they're going to cut themselves. I grow a fingernail, and I hold my knife up. I haven't got a knife with me, and I run my finger down the edge. So just your fingernail. It makes people's hair stand on the back of the neck normally, but you can feel everything, and it's such a lovely way of trying to feel how sharp off. But generally, what we'll do is we'll sharpen knife up and they'll do the thumb test and they'll sort of feel the edge. Sometimes when you get your finger on it, you can and run it up the back of the spine of the knife, you can feel if it's folded over slightly and you can rub it up and steel it. But generally, what we'll do is we'll take the sharpened knife into the process area, get a cut of meat, make a steak slice maybe, just to test it. Go back, wash your knife, sterilize it, give it a rub, and then steel it again or go it. Then it's generally ready for use.
That is exciting. That is really interesting discussion. Now, look, as somebody who has been in the industry for so long, I can observe from your answer, the way you answered the question, that whatever you do in food safety is at the back of your mind, because you
100%.
did mention about how you test the knife and you say, look, many years ago that was acceptable, but now
Yeah.
because of food safety is frowned upon. You also gave the example of the using your fingernails to check it. What is good hygiene when you're using knives? How many animals do you, if you're slaughtering sheep, for instance, how many animals do you have to slaughter to sterilize your knife to ensure that the products are not contaminated?
Okay, so I mean, I'll see various practices. Obviously, I like the two knife practice,
Okay.
different color handles. Both knives are kept in a sterilizer 82 plus, C plus, and then the slaughterman will take. Just say we're using a yellow and a red knife, for example. He will take the yellow handle knife off, make his cut, wash it, place it back in the sterilizer, get the other coloured handle knife, do exactly the same process. And obviously, as we're all aware that we're being watched on camera 24/7 when we're slaughtering, which is a good thing. Anybody can go and check that abattoir worker is using the correct handle knife, coloured knife to rotate, stop any contamination between sheep, for example, and then they're being washed and sterilised. So we know we're following any critical processes.
That is
That's
really,
what I like to see.
yeah, absolutely. That's really useful. And it brings us nicely to food safety training. You said you do HACCP and food safety training. Is that correct?
Yeah, we do both food safety at level 2 and 3, and we do hazard as well, which is sort of interlinked as
Yeah.
well anyway. So yeah, we do both. Yeah.
What does the food safety training involve? And does the HACCP training involve training people or highlighting all the 7 principles? Well, I did my course long ago. Is it still seven
Yeah.
principles or it's more than?
Yeah, it's still there. But there hasn't one. So if we take the food safety level 2 at the moment,
Yeah.
it's more of a, I don't want to say basic, because I don't like that basic word anyway. There's enough information for a butcher or a slaughterman to be able to follow food safety principles right from the off. I prefer the meat and poultry one, because it's actually teaching us about meat and poultry dangers within contamination and that sort of thing, you know. Whereas your normal basic food safety will be more where you put a cream cake in a fridge, which is no good to us as meat operators. It does include hazard to a fairly low level, but it gives them an awareness of what HACCP actually means and the fact that it's a food safety system. When we teach HACCP as a standalone, that's obviously part of food safety, but it's more about managing the food safety, noticing critical control points, and understanding what a CCP is, critical control point, and also understanding what a CP is. So you got a critical control point and a control point, and differentiate between the two. Then we go on to let the learners design their own hazard plan and things like, see if they can improve and stuff. So they're the main differences between the two.
Yeah. So critical control point. If a consumer is watching this, why do we have critical control points from a food safety perspective? I just want you to briefly explain that for a consumer.
Yeah, so if you take a 10-step process, just to make it easy, 10-step process from intake to outtake, for example, and we as a team of hazard people or food safety people have to identify what is critical to that product to make sure that it's safe for us to eat. I.e., if you take the abattoir, you look at EV process, evisceration process, CCP point, critical control point, all along. If you take a removing a head from a beast, that will probably be a CC point, as in control point, as opposed to critical. If it's not critical, that's going to damage us. Although you could argue that the spinal fluid might be getting onto the product, but if it's hanging upside down, it's not going to go onto the meat. So the difference between sort of critical, it's critical that we as a business identify those routes of contamination that may be pathogenic to ourselves. That way we can put a control point to stop that actually happening. That was in brief, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. That is interesting. Just we've discussed so many things. We've discussed what talk training. We've discussed food safety. We've discussed knife skills and HACCP. Now, if somebody in the UK operating an abattoir, I do get contacted. Well, I do when I'm chatting with halal abattoirs. Some of them, or even not abattoirs, but processing plants, they may want some help with training, or people abroad if they want some help with training. How can they contact you? I want you to take your time. What is your preferred method of contact? Is it via website? If yes, what's your website? If is it via LinkedIn? If yes, what's your LinkedIn? Do you have a number that people can contact? Which is your preferred method?
Yeah, it's funny. I get quite a few. I mean, yeah, I get quite a few calls, and I think because we've been in the industry in the UK, especially for a long time, I like to think we're fairly respected in what we do. We are very proud of what we do. So I've got a very good network, and as you well know, within the UK, people talk a lot, don't they? So it's like, oh, we use so and so, which is great. The website I use, which is, oh, I've got to remember now, you got me on the up now, www.wtd.org.uk. There's an inquiries button on there, which we get quite a lot through. I have got a Facebook page. I'm not massively keen on Facebook, to be totally honest with you, but it's a platform. LinkedIn is very good. I get a lot of good contacts on LinkedIn, and you can have a nice open chat with people on the chat thing. So, and yeah, phone calls are always there. So, and my number and details are all on my website, so I'm fairly easy to find.
Yeah. On LinkedIn, is it your personal website, your personal page, or do you have a company page on there as well?
You see, I was pulled up for this the other day. Someone said I should have a company page. I haven't.
Okay.
People tend to know WTD, Workforce Training Development Limited, because of Joss Faulkner,
Yeah.
for whatever reason. For whatever reason. So it is my personal page, which I quite like, to be honest with you, because it makes my business more personable than a business, if it makes sense.
Yeah. So my last question to you, Josh, is if a consumer, say in Saudi Arabia, is looking to buy products, why do you think the person should buy from the UK? If the person is more interested in welfare and food safety, why do you think, what argument can you put forward that they should buy UK over any other country?
From a training perspective, from an actual product perspective.
From training, like from
Oh,
assurance in
sorry.
terms of the fact that we've got better trained people to protect welfare, better trained people in our abattoirs to safeguard food safety. What message would you have for such a person?
I think the UK is extremely, extremely proud of what we've got from the welfare and a product perspective.
Nice one.
We have got a very, very high standard of welfare. We've got people like you who look after it as well, and people like me are ridiculously passionate about what we do. It's not a job, it's a way of life for us. And I've spent the last, 40 years, being passionate about what I do. I think we can help inject our ways of methodology. I think our knowledge is, I wouldn't say second to none, but our knowledge is certainly very, very high up there. And sharing experiences between different cultures and different people and different ways of doing things. It's a bit like you go into a new factory and you see different things. I think the biggest thing for me is passion.
Yeah.
That's my biggest thing. If someone want to get in touch with us about WATOC or what knife skills, passion's what drives things. And I think when you work with other people who are just as passionate, you can make something even better. So I do think we've got the highest standards I've ever come across. And I think we can do a good job anywhere in the world, maybe help them. Maybe they can help us.
Yeah.
Sharing knowledge is great.
I like that, just the fact that you saying we are, although we are doing our best, we are not proclaiming to be the best. We are also happy to learn from you.
Yeah,
And
exactly. Yeah.
yeah, as a human, once you agree to the fact that you don't know all, you are happy to also learn from people. I think that's the best way forward.
Yeah, I mean, every factory I go into the UK, and every butcher shop I go into the UK, and every business I visit, I learn something new. And it's funny because as a trainer, people expect you to know everything. And sometimes when you go into places, you have to have a day or so to get a feel of the factory. It's not just getting used to their processes. It's
Yeah.
also getting used to the people you're working with, and them having the trust in you. One thing I'm very proud of is wherever I end up working, I end up with the same overalls as that abattoir work, because I want to be part of the team. There's one thing I can't stand is like, oh, he's the trainer. I want to be welcome with an handshake. Hello, Joss, how you doing, mate? That's the way I like to approach things. So yeah, passion's everything for me in the industry.
Thank you very much, Joss. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on this podcast. And I hope if we invite you back, because there will be a lot of questions coming, particularly from people, even in the UK or people abroad. So they may be coming to me to ask me questions. If they come in, I'll throw them your way. But I would like to take this opportunity to thank you very much for making time for it. I know you're a busy person, but thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's an absolute honour. It really is. It's been great to chat, and it's great to talk to passionate people, because that's what we need. Our industry needs it. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you. I'll catch up
Thank you.
with you another
Thank you.
time. Cheers. Bye bye.
See you soon.
All right, cheers. Bye bye.